All right, so the next question is, if I'm streaming, where is this stuff stored? It's going to be on YouTube. So this may be the only thing you need to write down, because if you don't write this down, you won't be able to find the video to watch everything else, right? So you go to YouTube, and the channel name is SomProfs, SOMEPROFS. Okay, so that's basically the channel that I use for recording all my classes. And I'm going to click Auto Setup here because it's missing the edges, or the left edge to be more specific. There we go. Okay. So once you get to the channel, click on Videos. The one that's being recorded is always going to have a whole bunch of question marks. The rest depends on how, when I go ahead and change the question marks to the classes that I'm actually teaching. But from the time of the recording, you can usually tell which class it is. Is that okay? So if you click on this one here, if you use a phone or a computer and click on it, it would actually show you, the stuff that I'm doing right now with a 19-20 second delay. So it would just be like, a slight lag in real time. So this is where you find all the recording, and within a day or so, it would also be automatically closed captioned. So it's kind of nice that way because, if you don't have your headphone and you just kind of want to go through a few minutes of the material, you need to actually listen to it. You can actually just watch the caption. All right, so resources that I think is really helpful for any class. All right, so I have a very minimal setup for this class on Canvas because last time this class was offered, it was not offered through Canvas. So I have to reconstruct, all the material from what I had before. And what I'll do is I'm just going to go through the syllabus material first, and then we'll start to get into App Inventor. These are the section-specific information of this class. The co-requisite, as I said a little bit earlier, is cisp300 or 370. So you do not have to have taken those classes before, but you should take it within the same semester, if not before. So is that okay with you guys? All right. The rest of this class, or the rest of this page, just kind of talks about stuff that you already know, but I'm still required to put all of these items here. These are the student learning outcomes. So by the end of this semester, you should be able to acquire and install the necessary development tools, develop basic programs with a graphical user interface, test and debug with a graphical user interface, and push mobile device programs to the Play Store in this case, because these are Android applications. Okay, the schedule is kind of loose. So I will go over these topics, eventually, but may not be exactly on those specific dates. All right. So are there any questions about this slide? Okay. If you log into Canvas, you can actually access all the material that I'm talking about here. If there are no questions about this part, we'll go to the syllabus part that is common to all my classes. So it's not only for this class, but also for all of my other classes. Fairly boring stuff for the most part. I'll start with section 4. My name is Tak. So you can just call me Tak because the last name is really, really difficult to pronounce. And if you pronounce it in English, it's not even close to what it is supposed to be in Cantonese. So just call me Tak. It's all cool. Okay. You can call me at 484-8250. I'm usually not in the office because I only have 1 office hour per day. I do have time in the Design Hub quite a bit, but that's kind of like a separate thing. So you can leave a message, which will turn into an email with an MP3 file, so I can actually hear, what you say over the phone. The best way to contact me is by email. You just kind of type, what you want to tell me, using an email. So that's probably the better way to do it. Office hours on Mondays and Wednesdays, it's 8 to 9 in the morning. So today it's right before this class. Okay, So that's kind of handy if you can come on campus a little bit early. It's really easy to talk to me that way. On Tuesday and Thursdays, it's in the afternoons, 4:30 to 5:30, same place, CMC 404, which is like 2 buildings on that side. On Fridays, it is going to be from 10 to 11 o'clock, same place. So are we good so far with my office and office hour? Okay. Presentation and delivery method. For the most part, you have reading material. It may not be my material because App Inventor has a lot of tutorial itself. So I might direct you to read some of that material or have you to go through some of those exercises at App Inventor. Regular effective contact and communication policy. The most important part is the time frame policy. I usually respond within 24 hours. But if you have something urgent to talk to me about, the best way is to come find me during the office hour. Okay. Behavior policy. This is kind of new stuff that I have to put in here. One has to do with unintentional distracting behavior. This class is pretty small, so I'm not expecting that sort of problem. My other class, my CISP 310 class, has 62 students with 18 people on wait list, and then 4 more people that are beyond the wait list. So so that class has a little bit of the problem of chatting because it's just a huge class. Cell phone ringing in the class, that can be distracting too. I personally use Do Not Disturb because you can tie in Do Not Disturb to a calendar, and I put this class into my calendar, so Do Not Disturb automatically turns off the ringer during the class time, and then after class time, it automatically puts it back on. So it's kind of handy that way. 7.2 are behaviors that are much worse than just simple distraction. These are the behaviors that can cause fear, in the feeling of being intimidated or discomfort. So these are definitely not tolerated. Is that okay so far? Questions? Okay, oops, sorry about that. Okay, I think the mic is very directional. So when I talk in a certain way, like if I turn like this to talk, it picks up really, really well. And then when I talk in this direction, it doesn't pick it up. So I'm just kind of have to change it a little bit and see if it's not as sensitive like that. All right, so we'll give it a try. First day of class or orientation, this is the first day. So if you're here, you should not have anything to worry about. I will take roll. I'm going to pass the roll sheet right now. Yesterday, I talked about it. I forgot to pass the roll sheet, so nobody actually got to sign on to the roll sheet of my classes yesterday. So I'll start with you. Thank you. If you need accommodations because of disabilities, you need to talk to the DSPS office first, and they will tell you what you can do or what kind of resources you have access to. So we are talking about visually impaired people, hearing impaired people, people who cannot take notes, that sort of stuff, okay? Or learning disabilities. Excessive absence. If you read through the whole section, it just does a lot of math. So basically, for a class like this, you can miss up to 2 classes without excuses. The 3rd class anyone misses is going to be excessive. Okay? Now, it does not count sick days. If you're sick, and you can basically show me that you were sick, with a doctor's note or something like that, that's always excused. So this does not include that. This basically accounts for things that you cannot expect to happen. Okay, your car couldn't start in the morning. Okay, for whatever reason, you cannot be here. You had to stay home and watch your kid because your kid is sick. That sort of stuff. Okay, so you have up to 2 days for that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the continuation. Absences that are not automatically excused, this is not an exhaustive list, but it is a list of fairly common stuff. I do understand these reasons why people may not be able to show up in class, but the college or the college district does not recognize these as excuses for absences. Late policy, basically you have to turn in all the work on time, okay? Late submission do not get any points. Most of the time, most work has at least a week to do. So, just kind of time yourself and pace yourself accordingly. And hopefully nobody is going to be late on any of the homework assignments. Any questions about all of this stuff? Okay. So about academic dishonesty or integrity in this case, I'm just going to skip that part and just focus on the integrity part. The grade of a particular student, okay, the grade of a particular assessment, like a homework assignment or exam of a particular student should reflect the academic performance only of that student, not of anybody else, okay? And it has to be done at the approved or scheduled time of the assessment. So if an exam is supposed to be on Wednesday, it cannot be taken on Friday. Following all the rules of the assessment, as well as general rules already discussed in the syllabus unless otherwise stated. So basically, all the assessments are supposed to be independent. We do not do group work in this class, okay? So the assessments are supposed to be for individuals and only using resources that are allowed by the instructor. If I say it's open book and open notes, you can bring books, and your own notes with you. If I say it's open online, you can bring a computer, or if we do over at the lab, and I say, okay, you can use any resource you can access online. You can use Google search, okay, anything other than live communication during the test, okay. But it has to be according to the rules that has to be established. Is that okay? All right. And I'm going to skip the litmus test here. Student rights and responsibilities. If you feel that I wrongfully accused you of something, or if you feel that, well, I really have a right to be blah, 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 okay, and that right was not respected, you might want to read this document because it shows you the steps, procedures, and who to contact in case you want to file a grievance for whatever reason that is listed in that document. Thank you. Classroom behavior expectation, basically the same stuff. Yeah, we just kind of want to make sure the classroom is an effective environment for teaching and learning. Okay, so any type of behavior or action that can kind of turn the classroom into an ineffective place for teaching and learning, that would not be good. Let's see, moving on. How to attend lectures. Because I'm doing screen recording, it may not serve you a lot of good if you just try to copy everything that I'm doing. And because we're using App Inventor, it'll be pretty much impossible to copy notes because it's not like source code in a conventional sense where it's line by line, okay? You're gonna be looking at blocks, okay? So it may not be very effective trying to copy everything on the projector. It's getting recorded anyway, so you might want to focus on the concept instead of trying to copy everything. Is that okay? If I talk about something that is kind of interesting that you think maybe I need to get back to this later, okay? Then you want to jot down the time and the content that I'm talking about. The time will give you the ability to kind of fast forward in the recording to just that place. So you don't have to watch the entire 80 minutes of recording just to find out, oh, okay, this is the part that I want. Because you basically maintain your own index into the content of the recording. So that way you can kind of fast forward to, okay, I know this is being talked at about 45 minutes into the lecture. You just kind of fast forward and basically skip the first 45 minutes or so. Okay, so you want to kind of keep track of time, when I talk about a particular topic. How to succeed in basically all of my classes. Your assessment, especially the exams, are going to be at least open book and open notes. Okay. With this class, I might even have it being practical. So we'll take the exam over at the lab where you have, like your computer with you. You have Google search. You have, all the websites available, and the homework and the questions may just be, okay, write an app to do blah 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 blah, or start with this app and then extend the capabilities of the app to also do blah, 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 blah. Okay? So other than receiving help from someone online live during the exam, you can look up anything you want. You can Google search, you can read Wikipedia, you can go to the App Inventor website, look up reference material, you can watch my own video, okay, during that time. Okay? So I'm not testing whether you can remember stuff or not. I'm testing whether you understand the material and be able to use that knowledge to problem solve. That is what I'm going to be testing you on. Is that okay? All right. So section 17 basically just is a long section that talks about, what I mean by understanding and so on and so forth. So you probably want to spend some time to read about that part. Problem solving is also one thing that I really emphasize in all of my classes, because in development, if you want to work as a developer or programmer or software engineer or software architect, you are dealing with problem solving on a day-to-day basis. Okay, we are not manufacturing something. We are not, like cranking out Furbies on an assembly line. Okay, you're probably dealing with a different problem every day, every hour. There's a new problem. So problem solving is a skill that will be very important in your career. Is that making sense? Okay. So this section talks about how you can work on problem solving skills, and it's related to 17.3 independence. Independence basically is, if you want to think of it as a question, it's the question of when should I ask someone for help? That's basically what it is. Okay, so you work on the problem. So let's say you have a homework assignment due in a week, and then the question is, well, when do you start asking for help? You read the homework description. You understand what the program is, okay, so you read the homework description, and then when do you need help? Okay, that's the first question. And then the next question is, when do you ask for help? How long do you give yourself to try to solve the problem yourself before you're going to go like, okay, I think I need some help? There's no universal answer, okay, but I can give you some extreme answers that you go like, yeah, that doesn't seem to be right. So reading the homework assignment, okay, within 5 minutes, I just go like, well, I don't know how to do this, and I'm gonna ask somebody to help me. Would that be too soon? Like 5 minutes into a homework assignment that has a due date in a week? That seems a little bit too fast. I would give myself up to the next lecture. Okay, the next lecture. Why? Because in the lecture, I definitely get to see the professor, right? So if I have a question, I can ask the professor during the lecture. That will give me at least 2 days, right? Because if I give you a homework assignment on Monday and it's due on the following Monday, you give yourself 2 days, okay? Monday and Tuesday, you start to work on the problem, try to do it by yourself, and you're stuck. Then on Wednesday, when we meet in class, you can start to ask me questions. You can go like, I'm totally stuck with this project here. This is where I'm at. I don't know how to proceed from here. Does it make sense? So that will give you 2 days to really kind of let it soak a little bit, and then you just try to think and solve the problem within those 2 days. And if you're stuck on the third day, on Wednesday, you can come back and ask me. Okay? The grading standard of this class is everything is going to be rubric based. So that means I'm going to look at whatever thing you turn in, and then there will be multiple rubric items that I'll be checking, okay? Like user interface or the logic, okay, efficiency or something like that. With every single one of those, there will be A, B, C, D, F that I will be assigning. A is technically excellent, B is good, C, surprisingly, is actually satisfactory or fair, D is a low pass, and F is a fail, okay? So when I look at a particular program that you turn in, I'll be looking at each item or each thing that I'll be looking for, and I'll evaluate and to see whether it should be receiving a grade of A, B, C, D, or F. Is that okay? So I just want to use this table to kind of give you guys an idea of what A, B, C, D, F really mean. Because A means excellent, but what does that mean? I mean, well, in scoring, it means it's a perfect answer, cannot be any better. I would have done it exactly the same way, okay? So that's an A, okay? There's no room for improvement, further improvement. If you're looking at it from the perspective of job evaluation, so let's say you already have a job and today is your job evaluation. So what kind of employee will get a grade of A in an evaluation? Well, you're talking about an excellent employee who has significantly more value than the salary, which means it's worth a lot to the company. Okay, losing that employee means a lot of loss to the company. This is the kind of employee where the employer will offer promotion and or salary increase just to retain the employee. I do not want to lose you, okay? So without you asking me, I'm going to say, I'm going to give you a raise this year because I don't want to lose you. That's an A employee. I think the best one is the product evaluation, okay? If you go to Amazon.com, what kind of product gets 5 stars? What do you think? What will make you rate a product on Amazon with 5 stars? Better than expected. I like that. So exceeds your expectations. Okay, and 4-star is usually meeting and kind of exceeding expectation a little bit. It's like, oh, this is kind of really nice, But 5 stars means, wow, this is much better than what I expected. Okay. I ordered a regular, external hard drive. It comes with a case. It's built really rock solid. I dropped it and broke it. I called the manufacturer. They just sent me a new one, okay, without any questions. Or, I crashed the drive because, when it's working, my buddy decides to use a hammer to, knock it out to see whether it will continue to work, in that case. And the manufacturer go like, yeah, we'll replace it. Just don't do the same thing to it next time. Okay, that would be 5 stars because I would expect the manufacturers to go like, well, tough. I mean, you just did that to your own drive. I mean, too bad. Okay, so in terms of GPA, and A is 4.0, and if I look at your grade, if you have 87.5% or more, that would be within the grade of A. Is that okay? So you can see how the percentage works out for all the other grades. So this is for B, this is for C, this is for D, and this is for an F. So that's basically what I'll be doing in terms of grading. Is that okay? All right. All right. So what kind of stuff are we going to be working on this semester? We'll have homework assignments. So the homework assignments will basically be 20% of your final grade. Then there will be 3 exams. The first exam is 20% of your grade. The second exam is going to be another 20% of your grade. And then the final exam is 40% of your grade. Is that okay? So assignments, 20%. The first exam, which is about 1/3 through the semester, is 20%. The second exam, which is about 2/3 through the semester, is another 20%. So all of that stuff accounts for 60% of your grade. The final exam by itself is 40% of your grade. Is that okay? All right. I may also give you ungraded assignments where I'll just go like, well, this is a kind of good problem to work on, but I'm not going to grade it. So you'll be working on it, hopefully, and then a week later, I'll tell you what the solution is. We'll talk about it. You can compare your solution to my solution, and if you want to know, well, but how do these compare? Are they truly equivalent, or is one solution better? We can talk about that as well, but it's not going to be graded. So are we good so far with the syllabus? Okay, I skipped a lot of material. You kind of have to go through the whole thing yourself and make sure that you understand all the points. But I don't really like to talk too much on about the syllabus. So about the modules, I only got one module which is linked to the App Inventor website. So today we got quite a few things to figure out. How many people think that you can bring your own laptop computer for the purpose of this class? So we got the majority. We have about 2 people who may not have computers. Okay, so you guys need to use a lab computer, I would assume, since you didn't raise your hand. Okay, so we'll have to work out something at the lab. The reason why that is the case is because we have to install something on those computers first. So I can work with the lab tech and see if we can install that kind of software by next Monday so that you can do your homework assignment. The problem with that is, throughout the semester, there may be updates. And if there are updates, then they will have to update those computers again. Yep.
Is there a type of phone that you can do with pretty much, can you add the software on the phone? I mean, you could get, if you have a really good phone.
If you have a good phone, you still need to install something on the PC in order to do the development. There's not really a lot to install in that case, but you still need to install a minimal amount of software so that the App Inventor website can communicate with your phone so they can upload the program to your phone and run it on the phone. Okay? And I'll show you, how that's going to look like in just a little bit later. Yeah, well, some phones are pretty snazzy, but for this class, you don't need to get like top of the line. There's no need to go buy a Samsung Note 9, for instance, just for this class. Now, if you want one, you can get one anyway, but don't use this class as an excuse. I just bought a Galaxy S7 for $75 on eBay. Okay, the reason why it's so inexpensive is because the screen has burned in like patterns, because those are organic LEDs, OLEDs, and they do burn. They do have a burn pattern if there's a particular static image on it for too long. I bought it, partially for this class, but also partially just for my wife to play Pokemon Go. So I'm pretty sure you don't need the top of the line, the perfect screen for that game. Yeah, but $75 is not too much. I mean, I just talked to somebody else and who's in cisp 480, which is kind of like the honor class of combining 300 and 360. The textbook of that class is $300. And there's no textbook for this class. You don't have to buy a textbook for this class. So considering that is the kind of money that you're saving, $75 for a used phone, so you can actually do some programming without using your actual phone, isn't too bad. All right? Sorry? Wish? All right. Okay, so we're going to move on, and we'll start with the beginner tutorial. This will bring you to the App Inventor website. Okay, so before I kind of talk about the logistics for this class, which I have to go through, I just want to show you how easy it is to create an app using App Inventor. Okay, so all you do is you sign in. Okay, so you go to click on Create Apps, and it will ask you to sign in. I think our school account will work too. So if you have signed into your school account on the browser, just click that account. And I have a lot of stuff already done. And I'm gonna make a new project. So you go to projects, go to my project, and start a new project here. This is where I need to put on my clip on because I can't read my screen, at that particular distance. So I'm gonna write this here as Spring 2019, as the name of this project. Click OK. And this is the main interface of App Inventor. This is the part where you can design the screen of your app. Okay, this main area here, called Viewer, is kind of like a WYSIWYG kind of thing. You drag components over from the palette, and then you start to see what the user interface is going to look like. And trust me, this is a lot easier to use than Android Studio. Android Studio gives you a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, it's also really, really, really hard to to use. Okay, so this is really easy. So if you just want to write an app with a button to trigger the operation of something, and you have some label to display the text of something, you just have to drag a label over like that. Drag a button over like that, okay? And it has a lot of components already built in. If I scroll down, you will see the kind of categories of stuff that you can actually do as components. So these are all about the user interface. We are talking about the usual stuff. We have checkbox, button, date picker. Basically, when you click on the date picker, it will show you the calendar. So you can basically browse by month, and then you click on a particular date to select a date. An image is just a bitmap. Okay, you can upload an image, to the application that you're writing, and then the image as a user interface is just going to display the image statically. A label is just a text label. Okay, it gives you the ability to display static text. Well, but you can change, the program can change that too. List picker is kind of like a drop-down box. You can select one item out of a list. List view is kind of the same thing, except each item of a list view can be more complex compared to a list picker. A notifier is it's a Swiss Army knife to interact with the end user. Okay, you can use it to put up a dialog box, for instance. So you can basically ask an end user, do you want to proceed? Yes or no. Okay, and then you can get the answer back, so your app knows whether to go through with the operation or not. Okay, password text box, just like a regular text box, except what you type is going to be in dots. Okay, it's not going to show on the screen. A slider is just a horizontal bar where you can kind of move it around to select a particular value. A spinner is a drop-down box. A text box, okay, do I need to explain that one? It's a box where you can enter text. Okay. Time picker, kind of like the date picker, except this one gives you the ability to select a time based on hour, minute, and second. Okay. Web viewer is interesting. Web viewer is actually a miniature web browser. So it's really kind of cool in a way because you can actually point your web viewer to a URL, okay, anywhere on the web. So you can actually put some of the resources of your app on the web in the cloud. So that opens up some interesting possibilities, okay? All right, so I'm just going to scroll down this list here to show you what else is available. Layout is basically giving you the ability to control where the placement of the items. For instance, if you want to put 3 buttons on a row, you can't do it like without the layout components. With a layout component, on the other hand, you can use horizontal arrangement where it's a row of something, and you can put multiple items onto the row. You can use vertical arrangement, kind of the same idea, except things are arranged vertically. But you can also use a table where you can say, okay, I need a 3x3 grid. Okay, a button over here, a text box over here, a list picker over here, and so on. Okay, so you have some control over how you want to utilize the screen and how items are, the location of items relative to each other. It doesn't give you the same kind of control like Android Studio, but in terms of ease of use, this is way easier. Okay. All right, moving on. We have a media tab, and under media, you have a lot of options here. You can pull a camcorder, so it gives you the ability to preview what the camcorder is going to record, and it gives you the ability to have a button to say, okay, start recording. Okay, to get that to work in Android Studio is like 2 weeks worth of material. In this class, it's like drag, drop, okay, almost done. 5 seconds. So you got camera, which is still for still pictures. Image picker, allows you to select an image out of the folders like your image folder, on your phone. Player can play just about anything, and each one has a question mark next to it to give you a short explanation. Sound is just an audio sample. Sound recorder allows you to record not the video, but just the sound of what your phone or tablet is listening to. Speech recognizer, that's kind of cool, right? So now you can actually talk to your app, and it will turn speech into text. That's what the speech recognizer is going to do. If you want to do the reverse, it is text to speech. So if you want your app to be accessible, like someone who is blind, and you want to be able to alert that person about something, you can use text to speech. So instead of displaying the text in a label, now you can turn it into speech and use the phone's speaker to talk to that person. Okay, and once again, these things are not easy to do using Android Studio. But with App Inventor, it is a lot easier to do. You have video player, and this one I have never used, Yandex Translate. So according to the help here, you can use it to translate words and sentences between multiple languages. So it's kind of like Google Translate. Kind of cool. Drawing and animation looks, this is deceptively simple. It only has 3 items. It's got a ball, a canvas, and an image sprite. Does anyone know what a sprite is? S-P-R-I-T-E, in the context of programming. No? It's basically something that can animate by itself, that you don't need to kind of put your effort into it. So you can basically say, this is one thing, it's going in this direction at that speed, and it will move by itself. Okay? So that's what a sprite is. You can set up triggers, yes. Yep, but each sprite is an object inside a canvas that can move by itself. But you can set up triggers. When you hit a wall, you can set up a trigger and go like, okay, tell me what to do now. If 2 sprites collide with each other, you can set up a trigger and say, okay, what do we do now when this ball and this sprite when they collide? Okay, so with sprites and the canvas, you can actually make very simple 2-dimensional games. Now, I'm not delusional. Okay, App Inventor is not the correct platform to make like fancy games. But if you want to make a very simple game or have some elements on the screen that you want to have control over, like I want this thing to move in this direction, I want to draw something over here, text over here, and so on and so forth, it can do it. Okay? So that's what Canvas is about. And then you have maps. This is relatively new. And if you click on these things, you will find out what they can do. So the main idea is the map is a container, but within the map you can have lines, you can have a drop pin and that sort of stuff. So this is relatively new, but it allows you to write apps that has extensive use of a map, which is, I think, is really kind of cool. Okay. Let's see. Moving on. Sensors is really, really fun too. If you go down this list, the first one is the accelerometer. Basically, it senses motion of your phone. So if you use that sensor, if you use this component in App Inventor, then you'll be able to tell, okay, is the phone moving? If it is moving, in which direction is it moving? So it gives you the three axes of acceleration and deceleration and stuff like that. Okay. Barcode scanner, which ties into the camera of your phone, so you can basically scan barcodes, QR code and stuff like that. Clock, I don't need to explain that. Okay, the clock gives you the sense of time, so your app can basically say, okay, I need to do something 5 minutes later. You can set up a timer. So 5 minutes later, the timer goes off, and then you can specify the logic of what to do at that time. Okay, so it's really kind of handy for certain things. Gyroscope sensor, which is related to accelerometer. This one gives you acceleration. This one, if I click on it, it will tell you what kind of feedback it gives you. Non-visible component that can measure angular velocity in 3-dimensional in units of degree per second. So instead of giving you acceleration, linear acceleration, this one tells you about turns. Are you turning? If you're turning, how fast are you turning? Okay, what is the axis of the turn and stuff like that? So that's what this particular sensor can give you. Location sensor is kind of GPS. Okay, it gives you the current location. It can also give you the street address. So it's not just giving you the longitude and the latitude. It can also give you the street address if there's a street address corresponding to that location. Near field is NFC based. Non-visible component to provide NFC capability. It supports the reading and writing of text tags only, if supported by the device. Orientation sensor is kind of like a compass, except it also gives you the ability to know, which way, kind of like, in terms of degree. All of these things are kind of equivalent. You can work out the math yourself, but these are all provided to you. Between the accelerometer and the orientation sensor, these things are translatable. There's a pedometer to tell you how many steps has been taken, and it makes use of the accelerometer too, but it does the interpretation already before it gives you the number. So that's kind of handy if you want to make your app aware of motion or steps that the user has taken, like it's an exercise tracker or something like that. The pedometer will give you, basically the best user interface because it's already translating the changes of acceleration into steps. Is that okay? Making sense? Okay. And then we got the proximity sensor. Some phones has a proximity sensor to detect whether the phone is close to your face or not. So that's usually what the proximity sensor is useful for. In social, you can have a contact picker. Basically, it's the same thing as picking a contact in most usual apps. So if you want to send a text to somebody, okay, this gives you the user interface to pick the person that you want to send a text to. And then we got email picker, phone call. You can use this interface to basically make a phone call, specify the phone number. This allows you to pick a phone number. This is the same thing as the share button on most apps, like a browser. It gives you the ability to access all the capabilities of sharing within the phone. Okay, so if your app, says, okay, you're generating a bitmap, you're generating a location, or you're generating something that is shareable. Okay, so you can use a sharing component in your app in App Inventor to bring up the usual thing that you see. Do you want to share by email, by text, SMS, or do you want to share by whatever app you have installed that supports sharing. So if you have the Facebook app installed, then that will be one of the options that you can share through. Okay.
Like sync two apps.
Huh?
You can sync two apps and actually share between them.
It's maybe not for that purpose. Okay. It also has texting support, but I do want to warn people before they start to use this, because if your app is using the texting capability, it will take over SMS. So your usual texting app is not going to work anymore. So think it through before using texting as an option, okay? Or at least read through the text here. And then Twitter gives you the capability of, it has the interface to interface with Twitter, so you can go through the small text here to find out what you can do. You can also have storage, to store locally as a file. TinyDB and TinyWebDB, it's kind of like a database. DB stands for database. It's not really a database, but it does allow you to. It's what we call a key pair association. Okay, so you can create a key like last name, and then you can store a value. In my case, it's Aoyang. Okay, so that allows you to set up a small database to store kind of small bits of information. Okay, it's not intended to store like a gigantic amount of information like a real database, but if you want to store something that your app needs to access, TinyDB is on the device. TinyWebDB is on the web. It is in the cloud. Okay, so that's the distinction between these two. I'm just outlining, all the resources you have access to, because I need you guys to be thinking about something, but I'm going to go through all of this stuff first. In terms of connectivity, the big one is web. Okay, but we already talked about web, the web viewer, right? This is web, which is not a visible component. This particular component allows you to make requests to URLs, and then you get the reply back. Then you can process the reply. In other words, if you know how to interact with a particular URL using the API or application programming interface protocol, you can now directly interface using this component with a resource in the cloud. It's really raw. This one is really just using the typical URL, so you still have to format your GET or POST requests. But it does allow you to send it and interpret the reply and stuff like that. So it gives you the most basic mechanisms to interact with an HTTP, HTTPS type of resource. But it's not interactive. It's not intended for a person to interact. It is intended to be used programmatically, like an API. You also have ability to use Bluetooth devices. I'm not really quite sure, how far you can do with the Bluetooth client and server. I think they're only capable of serial communication. So you can send and receive, text streams using the Bluetooth components. Lego Mindstorms is really cool if you have a Lego Mindstorms kit. I believe they only work with the NXT kit, which is kind of old. It's not the most recent version of Mindstorms, but your phone, through these components, can directly drive a Lego robot kit around. You can control the motors, you can read back the sensors and stuff like that using the Lego Mindstorms blocks. I've done it before. It's actually pretty cool because the built-in controller of the Lego Mindstorms kit is really limited in terms of what it can do. But once my phone was able to interact with the robot kit, I can now start to specify much more complicated logic for the robot. So it's kind of cool if you have one of those NXT kits. And experimental, I don't think we should worry about that too much. And that's about it. So this is the user interface, and it allows you to specify what component you want to use. So the next question is, What about the coding? What about the program that goes along with this? Like, if button 1 is clicked, okay, I want to specify some actions. How do we do that? That's the other tab. Okay, so in order to do the programming, you have to switch into the blocks view. So there are 2 views to App Inventor. The first one is the designer view, where you design the user interface. It gives you the ability to change the properties of things that you have selected here. Like, what kind of color do you want to use for the button? Do you want to display an image instead of text with that button? That sort of stuff you can specify here. Okay? But if you want to specify logic, like actions, what to do, that sort of stuff, you have to switch to a blocks view, which is basically allowing you to specify code corresponding to your user interface. So in this case, I only have 2 components here. So we can look at button 1. Okay. So when you click on button 1 or a component that you have already put into the user interface, now we have all of these event handlers that are available with a button. So the first one obviously is the most common one with a button. Okay, when the button is clicked, let's do blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's go ahead and specify that block. This is how you write programs. They're all blocks. Drag and drop all day long. It's really cool for the first 5 minutes. And then for those of you who are more experienced programmers, you go like, I want to type my program. No, you cannot. There's no shortcut to type your program. You have to drag and drop the blocks all day long. It's not as bad as it seems, okay? It's not too bad. Okay, so let's say, when the button is clicked, you say, okay, I want to only do certain things, when a condition is met. Then you can use an if-then block here, and then you can specify, a condition, before you perform the action. So with a condition, you have to go to math, because we are talking about comparison. Can either be math or text, because we are talking about text comparison. Nope, it's going to be math. And we are looking for equality. I don't see equality here. Yep, right there. Okay, so you drag that block and you put it here. Now we have to specify what 2 things you're comparing. So one thing can be the label itself. Okay, so let's say we want to compare something about the label. And you click on the label and you want to know what is the current text of the label. So this is one thing that you want to compare to. And then the second thing may be just a string, that you want to compare to. So you want to go text and go to the first one, which allows you to specify just a literal string, and you can say secret. So if the label displays secret, then you want to do something blah 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 here. This is how you write programs in App Inventor. There's no syntax. There's no compiler. Okay, there's no need to learn how to use code blocks or something like that. It's just drag and drop. And on top of that, it is impossible for you to forget to save your program, because we are still in a browser. Every time you do something, the program automatically saves. Okay? Yep. MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Whatever we make, they own?
No, you own your stuff. Your program is yours. Okay, I misunderstood when you said who owns these. I thought you were talking about the tools, but if you're talking about the program, it is yours. You can choose to publish, but if you choose and say, now this is proprietary, I don't want to share with anyone, then you don't have to share. But it is on the web, which means even though MIT does not own the intellectual property, there's always that chance that somebody hack into the server and grab your design and basically pirate it. So there's always that possibility. If you come up with the next super duper encryption logic, don't do it here. May not be a good platform to try it. On the other hand, if you're only talking, you're only experimenting with your basic app design, that's nothing at risk. Is that okay? Yeah. All right, cool. Okay, I want to see the program run. Okay, what do we do next? Well, that's when things get complicated. Because if you go to connect, okay, which is basically saying, okay, how do we want to run the program? You got a few options. You got 3 options. You got AI companion, you got emulator, and you got USB. USB is simple, okay? You basically hook up a phone, okay? So phone, USB cable. You still need to install a component to get this to work, but once you install a component, it's pretty easy to do. So you just hook up your phone, and finding a USB port. Okay. I don't have the components installed yet, so it's not going to work. But if it does, if I already have those components installed, then this message would not display. Launch the AI starter program on your computer and then try again. Okay, I have not installed that component yet. What if you don't have a phone and you don't want to pay $75 to get a used phone to work with this class? Not a big problem, but it can be an issue. You can go to an emulator. So an emulator is, as the name implies, it's a program that emulates something else. Okay? In this case, it would be a program to emulate an Android device. So you don't have to buy an Android device. You basically have a quote-unquote software Android device that will be running in either Windows, Linux, or Mac OS X. But the problem is you have to install that. Okay? It's free. You don't have to pay anything, but you have to install it. The computers in the lab will not allow you to install anything. So that's why we might have a problem in the lab if you're not bringing your own computer. If you have your own computer, it's not a problem. Okay? So AI Companion is kind of interesting because this is a way for you to upload a program to a phone without a USB connection, without any connections at all. So what happens is, in my phone, I have to install a particular companion program. So I have to install the companion app first, okay? But once I have the companion app installed, I start the companion app, and then I take a picture of the QR code. And that will basically link the program that I'm writing here, to run on the phone. So that gives you the kind of the best option, because you don't have to install anything at all on the computer. You just need to have a mobile device that has a QR code scanner and AI Companion installed. So if you're planning to use the lab computers, I would advocate for this particular approach, but you do need your own Android device, actual device, in order to use this approach. So are we okay so far? No, because iPhone is not Android based.
Yeah, I know.
They are starting to. You can run an iPhone emulator on any computer. I think they are available, but you have to pay Apple if you want to get that tool as a developer.
Yeah.
I think they charge $100 a year, if I remember correctly, as opposed to Android, where it doesn't charge anything at all. Until you publish and start to sell your app, you don't have to pay anything. All right, so let's assume that we are using the AI Companion method. So I want to show you this. I spent this morning to get this to work, so better work now. Okay. device unauthorized. Okay, so I just need to authorize this side. It's a security thing, before my PC can talk to my Android device, I have to click on the Android device here first to say it's okay, for the PC to contact it. So now it should be okay. There we go. Cool. Okay, so you're now seeing my the screen of my PC. And let me see if I can shrink it so it fits on the screen. Yep, there we go. Yes. It's a 2009 Miata, so it's 10 years old already. It's a nice, fun car, but it's not as fast as most people think it is. Yeah, a modern day minivan can probably keep up with it until we start to hit the curve. Okay, so I need to first install the app, remember? So let me go to my Google Play Store to look for AI Companion. MIT AI2 Companion. That's the app that I need to install. Okay. So let me go ahead and install this. Click. There we go. My phone has an issue with downloading and installing app. My Google App Play Store, sometimes I would start a process and it won't actually install until like an hour later. I've looked up a lot of resources to try to find out how to fix this one, like cleaning out the cache and stuff like that. Nothing seemed to work. Yep.
Anything like FileShare? Have you used FileShare?
What's that again?
FileShare.com? Have you ever?
File share?
FileShare.
Nope. What does it do?
You can get pretty much anything for free. Any app, any software, anything.
Nope.
Right now, FileShare.com.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I don't have to pay for no apps or anything.
Okay. Well, I'm an open source person.
It takes you to the app index, Google index of movie takes you to Google index of movies.
Ah.
Or the app index for an app, it takes you to Google app index, alphabetical order.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, quite some pretty cool apps in there.
Mm.
And everything you tap on is absolutely free. You download straight to your phone.
Okay. No, this is.
Make sure that your phone is not set to auto update with Wi-Fi only. Sometimes that's a problem.
Well, I do have Wi-Fi now, but I can change that configuration. App download preference over any network. Yep.
Updates right there over Wi-Fi only.
Okay. So.
And make sure you also don't auto update apps because sometimes that's what does it. Like they try to update other apps instead of yours.
Aha. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna close it first and restart it just to be sure.
Yeah, I work in T-Mobile and that happens a lot. I always have people coming to me why they don't have apps downloading.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Or you can just Google the APK of any app also, man. Instead of going to Google Play Store.
Hmm.
Whatever the name of it is, APK download, Google that, and it'll take you where you get download probably about faster.
Okay. Yep. It's not. Still not working.
Just give it a shot.
Yeah. Sure.
That file set when you get a chance to everything you tap on
Real quick.
You don't need the app. You can get the app or you can just
See what all these apps are trying to push an update.
Mm-hmm. Which T-Mobile store do you usually work in?
At Thomas?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, by Melts. Melts and
I don't go to Natomas too much.
oh,
I know the one on Arden.
all right. You live around there?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right across from Safeway. So let me ask you guys, if you're planning to use the lab computer, do you have your own Android device for this class? Yes? No? Okay. So that might be a problem. Without a device and without a laptop, we'll have to figure out a way for you to test your apps. Okay, well, you guys can kind of work it out, but it would be nice to. Oh, okay, you got it working.
It would still probably take a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've worked on this Wi-Fi before too.
Okay. Well, it may not happen, before the class ends today. So we don't really have anything specific to work on during the lab time today. If you want to go to the lab and just kind of try out App Inventor, using a browser, just kind of check out the features. You can already start programming, okay? That is not the issue. The issue is you kind of run it. But if you want to just kind of figure out what you can do, that's a possibility. Yep.
What are the minimum requirements for you to download the software to a laptop?
To a laptop? Oh, okay, so I can. Are you going to run an emulator?
Possibly.
If you're trying to run an emulator, you should have acceleration supported by the hardware. So that means you have to have an i5 or i7 with the Intel line, with the VTX flag. Other than that, you don't need anything like super duper. I used to do it on the i5, 25 something processor on the laptop computer. It works okay. I mean, it's not stellar, but it will work.
Does it have to be those processors? Does it have AMD Radeon?
Yeah, if you have an AMD, it still needs to have hardware support for virtualization. As long as it has that, it should be okay. Chromebook would not work. Because even though you can install, I know you can hack a Chromebook and turn it into a regular computer, it may not have enough RAM for the browser itself. So I'll tell you this one. Huh? External. You cannot have external RAM. You can have external mass door, but not external RAM. Yeah, I'll tell you one story. Huh?
I just said sometimes they're upgradable, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah. I had one student with a dead-end HP computer, one of those things that cannot be opened up to install additional RAM. It came with 2 gigs of RAM. Windows says, I want 1.5 gigs. Leaving only 0.5 gigs for everything else. The browser running, App Inventor takes up, 500 megabytes or so just to get the basic stuff working. So as we started to actually write programs using the blocks, she just ran out of memory. There was no way to save it because it was a dead-end, laptop computer. There was no room for for expansion, and it was running Windows, which took up a lot more resources than Linux does. Yep, so we are running out of time. I don't think I can get this to install and show you guys, how that's going to work. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed a lot. I was
Not a whole
this
lot.
whole time. I just want to know, should we be bringing in our laptops and phones to the class?
That would be better, because that would give you the most options of, how you want to set things up.
Especially for the lab after.
Yes. Yep. But today we're not going to have any official lab. I'm going to go over and open up the lab, and you guys can come in and play with App Inventor, and just kind of check out the user interface. What kind of stuff you can put into it. But there's no way to actually run the app. You can do it if you have your own Android device, actual Android device. You can already do it using AI Companion. AI in this case stands for App Inventor.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's no official homework assignment. I'll see you guys on Monday if you don't want to go to the lab. Yes, go ahead.
What equipment is required for this class? I know USB and laptop, right? Is that it?
Yeah. Yep. You don't even need a laptop, but the problem with you not having a laptop computer to bring with you is the lab computers. We cannot install any major software onto the main computers. So I will have to request to have certain software installed if we are going to use the lab computers.
Yeah, I have one laptop.
Okay, that'll work really good. Yep.
I have like a little extra device, and I have an extra Chrome, but I have like an older gateway I use,
Uh huh.
but I have software for people who don't have like, that's why I wanted to Chromebook would work.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's very generous. The Chromebook is going to work with the web interface, but it won't be able to run the emulator. It will still need an actual Android device to take a picture of the QR code in order to work, with a Chromebook.
So there's no reason to go to the lab right now.
There's no reason to go to the lab unless you just want to kind of play and ask me questions.
I know.
Oh, okay. So you should be fine.
Are you gonna open the lab?
Hmm?
Are you going to open a lab?
I'm gonna go open the labs. I just have to kind of shut down on this side first.
What's
Yep.
the other